Have you ever wondered how to darken yellow? Or do you have a preferred way for darkening yellow? Well, one of our viewers did in an email. This person says, I've been doing some personal research on the subject of darkening yellow, and it's left me in a state of confusion. And here's why she's in a state of confusion. All the different suggestions. Use a darker tube color. Well, she says that doesn't teach me anything. Mix with the complement. She says, seems to me that saturation level would be compromised. Add orange to yellow instead of a violet. Add black. She says, I never use black. You know I don't either. Well, most of the time. Mix with one of the earth colors. You see all the answers. Well, then she asked, do you have a preferred method for darkening yellow? I sure do. Well, my preferred way for darkening yellow is to use something that will darken it according to what the hue is doing as it goes darker. Did you know the hue actually will change in shadow as things go darker? It depends on what's going on, what the light is or what the local color is. And yellow is one of those colors that will, when you darken, sometimes it wants to go green, or you'll see it getting greener in the darker areas. And sometimes the lemons as yellow will actually lean a little bit more towards orange. So the darker colors are a little bit warmer. And then sometimes in yellow, the darker portions will just go neutral. So here's how I think that out. First of all, we'll start with a yellow, and this is my Hansa yellow light it is. Well, that's Utrex's version of Hansa yellow light. I believe Gamlin's version of Hansa yellow in this particular shade is called Hansa yellow medium, which is confusing, but you know how those things go. All right, so I'll put a sample of that up so make it a little bit clearer to see. Now, then of course, if this were cadmium yellow light, it would look very much the same. It's simply a yellow that sort of registers as pure yellow on the color wheel. All right, what happens when the color yellow is, well, when it's used as, when it's in a local color, sometimes we'll see it a little bit more green, like a little bit more yellow green, and sometimes we'll see it a little bit more yellow orange. You see the difference in these lemons. These feel as if they're leaning a little bit more towards that green. These feel as if they're leaning a little bit more towards orange. Well, first of all, I want to give you this little hint. Most colors, most hues, or most of the warm hues or the lighter hues, actually work best when we do go for an exact complement for getting them darker. Because actually, if you go for the complement, when you look in shadow, it is less saturated. Shadows are less saturated than areas in light. So let's do that first and see what happens. And so this is my violet. You see how very, very dark this color is. It's not only very, very dark, but it's also a very strong tinting strength. So because it's a strong tinting strength, I'm going to spread it out just a little bit. Because if you put too much in it, it goes too dark too soon. Okay, let's see what happens. I have some yellow in my brush there. I'm going to darken it a bit just with this this violet, and this is called dioxazine purple in oil. In watercolor, the similar color is called carbazole violet, and I'm not quite sure what's available in acrylic. Now here's what we've got. You see, it doesn't really lose anything. It simply goes a little darker. It does lose some saturation, but so does this. Let's pull this over so that you can see. And if you can see that yellow on my brush, well, just compare. You visually compare here to see here. You see it's very close to what's going on here. Let's get that just a little bit darker. Just a little bit. See, but if you load your brush with the yellow and you have the purple or the violet, whichever one you want to call it, had that spread out real thin, then just ease the brush into the edge of it, and you see you can gradually get it darker. And so let's just gradually get that just a little bit darker and see what happens. And so here we have it here, a little bit darker, or much darker in fact. In fact, this is much darker than this, but this is going in the right direction of the yellow. Now, in this seems to me to be going just a little bit warm, in the warm direction. If we wanted it to go just a little bit cool, we look at the color wheel again. Yellow, violet, and to get it cooler, we need a little bit more blue in it. So, this is what I mean by not having I don't have a preferred way of darkening. I just let the colors I see tell me what to do. And I'm guided by the color wheel. So if I do that, and now I ease in just a little bit of that blue, and pull it back into this and get it thoroughly mixed, you can see here the difference. This tends to be a little bit more neutral. You see it's a little bit more akin, this, a little bit more akin to that. So when the colors seem to be cooler, and the lemons are leaning a little bit more towards green, then that's my preferred way. I always like to darken a lighter color with something that is transparent, a very dark transparent, in whatever neighborhood I'm looking for. So this is transparent and this is transparent. Now, what about this? Well, I'm going to rinse the brush out for that. And there's another. Now, if it's getting warmer, if those darker colors are getting warmer, then we need a warmer dark. Now, one warmer dark that I have is right here. And we'll just pull that down right here. Now, this is the Rembrandt Transparent Oxide Red. Burnt Sienna is warmer and darker, but it's not as dark and transparent as this is. Burnt Umber, you know, that's going to give you kind of a muddy yellow. You can try it, but I think if you stick with the transparent colors, your darker colors will be a little bit brighter, have more vibrance to them. So for this one, let's see what happens if I simply choose to go with this warmer dark. This is Transparent Oxide Red, and it really, hue-wise, it leans in this direction. It's more of a red to red-orange, so it leans in this direction. And when I add that, just to get it gradually darker, I get this. Now, sometimes when yellow gets darker, this is sort of where it begins to go. You see right in here, it begins to feel a little bit more orange as it goes darker. Let's see what happens if we get it even a little darker. Not much, just a little bit. And you see as I add more of that red-orange to it, it really begins to get more orange. Well, so what does that tell us? If it's not getting more orange here, well, it is getting a little bit more orange right there on this part of a rind. But if it's not getting more orange here, that means it needs to have more cool in it. And we've got that cool right here. I'm going to pull a little bit more of this blue down here. Pure, not right there where I was mixing. And let's see what happens. Now, we know that blue is a complement of orange. So, if we want that to be a little bit more neutral and still keep it on the warm side, we'd add just a touch of a ultramarine blue. I think it's the best blue if you use, because it leans more towards violet. If you use one of the greener blues like phthalo blue or cerulean, any of those, it's going to turn green. The orange is going to turn green because it has that green dominating in it. But look, if we add just a little bit of the ultramarine blue to it, we're going to make it more neutral. And well, I didn't add quite enough. Let's try that again. Let's get this pull this down, get just a little bit more paint on the brush. It's got to work it. You got to have enough paint on the brush to make it work. There we go. Now put just a little bit of that blue in it. Not much, not enough. Not enough to change it too much. I just want to get it a little bit more neutral. And then here is what we have. Now you can see, if you let your eyes move from here to here, pull this over so that you can see that. Let your eyes move from here to here. You see this is very close to what we have. Now if we need it very dark, let's pull a little bit more of that orange into it. Let's see, compare that. That's pretty close. It needs to be a little bit more neutral, so add just a little bit of the blue back in. This way you have more control. You have more control over the actual mixture. Let's put this right here. There we go. And see, that's very close to what we have right there. Maybe not quite cool enough. So add just a little bit more blue in it. We can control the way colors lean by depending on the color wheel as a guide, and think of them in terms of hue. If you're just thinking in terms of the tube name like burnt umber, burnt sienna, that's kind of guessing and haphazard. You don't really have the control. Burnt umber is already very much neutralized. Burnt sienna is more neutralized and it's rather opaque, so it doesn't give you the brilliance. But if you use the transparent darks and you use them according to the hue, not depending on just one, but depending on mixtures that can lean in one direction or the other, then you can come very close. In fact, you can hit it on the nose for any dark yellow you see. And you can use that same principle you see there. There we have just a little bit more neutral. And, well, actually, I think maybe the combination of those might be what we would need working in that area. So the point is, and by the way, you can use that same principle for darkening any warm color. Any of the lighter colors that come light out of the tube, especially on the warm side, use that same principle. Begin with its complement, and then depend on if you need it cooler. If the colors need to be cooler, they still come out a little bit too warm, then cool it down with a little bit of blue, a blue that doesn't have green in it. If it needs to be warmer, then use a warmer color out of the tube. But if you start with your darkest colors that are more transparent and gradually mix those colors, you will get exactly what you want when you're darkening yellow and when you're darkening other light colors and warm colors as they come out of the tube too. Give that a try. Be sure to view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to darkening where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.